Sub-Saharan Africa has been pretty well religiously free. And the country we haven't touched on, Latin America, is one of the most religiously free continents around. There's exceptions.
It's primarily Catholic, right? South America?
Yes. And it used to be more repressively Catholic. You had established Catholic churches. Protestants could have a difficult time. But especially since the Second Vatican Council, it's very much opened up. So countries such as Brazil or Peru may have other problems, but religious freedom is not one of them. They're still majority Catholic, but a much more open Catholicism. The repressive places are still like Cuba or now Nicaragua, which has become very repressive in the Catholic Church. Ortega is still in there. If you remember, you may not have been born then, but with the fight with the Sandinistas 30 and more years ago, and it was hoped that they were sort of Marxists. They said, well, no, we're really nationalists. We believe in pluralism. We'll have an open government. Well, guess what? I mean, they're out for a while, but no, they're now highly repressive. And the president they had 30 years ago is still the president, and his wife's the vice president, by coincidence. Just in general, Latin America is a place which has improved, except for militant Islam, especially in Nigeria. Much of sub-Saharan Africa is there. Europe is getting more repressive, usually you get a few things. One is there's more control and fear of Muslims. Secondly, with radical Islam, you get radical Muslims carrying out attacks, say on the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, or massacres at concerts, hundreds of people killed, Ariana Grande conference. So you're getting increased level of violence there. Many secular Europeans are very nervous about what they keep calling sects, that is S-E-C-T-S, who they, without very much evidence of brainwashing people, and then increasingly secular and demanding that life be secular. Just one example, it's been in the news. There is a German couple who didn't want to send their children to a German state school, but German law requires it. So they fled Germany and found refuge in the United States, where they've been for about 10 years. And now the government's threatening to send them back to Germany, where they're likely to lose their children unless they send them. So that's a dramatic example, but you're getting that more secular mindset of distrusting independent religion.
Why does persecution seem to ramp up, and what are the factors that make it, get a lot worse suddenly in a place?
One is, I mentioned earlier that globalization tends to make religions more assertive, and that can affect religious freedom. Another factor with Christianity is the distinction between the authority of the church and the authority of the state. Christianity has always held that there are, at least when it got access to political power, that there are two rulers, the spiritual ruler and the secular ruler, and one should not usurp the authority over the other. One of the things this meant is the state could not claim to control all of society. The church needed its independence. And bear in mind, when we talk about a church then, we're not talking about just First Methodist down on the corner. The church was the education system. I mean, if you got educated, it was going to be in church seminaries and church-related universities. The church was the media. If the king wanted to announce new taxes, he couldn't put an ad in the newspaper. There would be a declaration which would be read out from the pulpits. That's how you got news. So a very influential body. And so this has meant that within Christianity, Christians have often been lousy at doing it, a very strong assertion of the independence of the church from the state, from government. And when you get authoritarian governments, that is a threat to them. The late Samuel Huntington, probably the best political scientist in the United States in the last half of the 20th century, said that with Christianity you distinguish God and Caesar. He says, but in radical Islam, God is Caesar. In communism, Caesar is God. So that bifurcation in Christianity is a threat to authoritarian government. And that's why there are places where Christians may be persecuted, whereas other sort of more passive religions are not. So what Americans miscall separation of church and state is not an American thing. It goes back to, mentioning the Old Testament, the priests and the kings and the judges were not the same people, and they had different authorities, and they were not to try and usurp one another. That goes back, within the roots of Judaism as well as Christianity. So that means that Christianity can be a challenge to communist government, any government which doesn't want a more plural society. So I think that's another major factor.